It's in the meat, it's in the seafood, it's in the pork, it's in the chicken, it's in the beef, and most people don't even know that this is happening right now, and it is infecting our food supply. And a new study just came out confirming what we thought. All right, and this is something that's becoming almost inescapable unless you grow your own food and you completely avoid this entire process of getting the food to market and getting it on the shelves. Unless you are avoiding that, you are getting it straight from a farmer. But even then, the things that it is wrapped in, the packaging, all these things could be infecting your food as well. And a new study just confirmed that over 88% of food that they tested, these main food groups for protein, are infected and contaminated right now. And these chemicals are affecting our health. They are affecting our endocrine system. They're affecting our hormones. They're affecting things like insulin resistance potentially, and creating things like inflammation as well. These are very serious chemicals that are showing up in over 88% of all the beef, the chicken, the pork, the seafood, and especially products that are in the center of the grocery store. Those are the most contaminated as well. They have even higher rates of contamination than our meat. All right, so this is almost becoming inescapable, and this is why you need to be getting meat birds, meat chickens, finding some kind of cattle rancher, some kind of beef farmer that you can buy cuts of beef off of. All right, this is going to become critical in the future because our health is at risk. The food is being poisoned and contaminated, and they just did this major study showing that most of our food is infected with these chemicals at rates that we didn't even know before. And these are micro and nano chemicals that are not able to even be filtered out of the water. So even the water's being infected. They're saying plants, vegetables, this is taking over the planet, these chemicals, and this new study just confirmed it. All right, and our health is at risk. Our society, our fertility rates, all these things are at risk from these chemicals being in our food and being in our water. So let's dive into this information here. And this is a new study, and this was just posted from mainstream news, that over 88% of our protein is now infected with these micro and nano plastics. So you can see here, this is the article coming out of Fox News here, and they are confirming that the food is contaminated. You can see here, microplastics found in overwhelming majority of American meat, water, and plants. It says microplastics found across 16 types of food, including beef, chicken, seafood, and plant-based samples. It says the comprehensive study conducted by researchers at the nonprofit Ocean Conservancy found that approximately 88% of protein samples contained microplastic particles, and even nanoplastics we are now dealing with as well, that cannot be filtered out at the micron levels that we have. It's almost impossible to filter these particles out, and they are getting deep within our body and deep within our tissue as well, and disrupting our entire physical processes. You can see here it says highly processed products contain the most microplastics per gram, the study said in the findings. And it says microplastic contamination did not differ between brands or store types. So it doesn't matter. Even if you buy, I've noticed I was buying some organic macaroni. All right, my kids like to eat this, and it was like just as cheap as the regular macaroni. So I got some, and then the cheese packet is this plastic cheese packet. So it's like you just can't even get away from it. And this stuff's everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're trying to eat healthy or organic. These microplastics are infecting all of the packaging as well. All these things are being hit as well. It says the samples were differentiated into 16 types, such as beef, chicken, seafood, pork, tofu, and plant-based food products. It says microplastics were discovered in all 16 sample types. It says, quote, the maximum U.S. adult exposure to these proteins is 3.8 million microplastics per year. That's the maximum that you could potentially accumulate from eating meat. It says the mean US adult exposure from consuming these proteins is greater than 11,000 microplastics per year. All right. So this is extreme levels that are accumulating inside your body. And they've done studies that it's around every month, every few months, you are accumulating a credit card's worth of microplastic inside of your body cumulatively, all throughout your body. It gets in your blood, and these nanoparticles can pass the blood-brain barrier as well, all right, and start accumulating inside of your brain potentially. And it says among the tested samples, approximately 44% of the microplastics found were in forms of fiber. An additional third of the particles were in the form of plastic fragments. All right, so 44% are little fibers, little microfibers, like little hairs, little pieces of fabric, okay? And most of our fabric is now made of these plastic materials, these synthetic materials, and they're sitting on our body, and we are sweating, and we are absorbing these microplastics even through things like our clothing as well, right? And especially children, this could be very disrupting for their hormones when they're little, and they're absorbing especially this very thick plastically, like the workout clothing, that you can feel it. It almost just feels like plastic. It's complete synthetic material, and that is the worst kind. That is the worst kind to absorb into your body. This stuff's everywhere. And this is like civilizational threat, right? This is why it's such a big deal, because this is causing a lot of these plastics mimic estrogen. They mimic estrogen, and it's causing hormone problems in men. It's causing testosterone declines in men, these exposure to these microplastics, and especially in utero for babies that are exposed to things like phthalates. It affects their testosterone levels and their growth levels for their whole life. They've done studies on this, and this is devastating. This is like civilizational threatening, and the fertility rates are going down, right? And the T levels, the testosterone levels in men are also plummeting, and it also could be causing these estrogen problems in women as well, hormone disrupting problems in women, and potentially aggravating and accelerating certain cancers in women as well, these microplastics. So these things are very dangerous, and they have been unleashed onto the public with no regard. Whenever one of them gets banned, they just change the formula. It's BPA, okay, now it's BPC, okay, and they say it's a BPA-free water bottle. That's how they get around the restrictions, and this is happening everywhere. They ban a certain plastic, and they just change it. And this study wasn't even able to count all of the micro and nanoplastics that are actually in these foods, because there's a limit on the micron level for filtration, right? So some of these particles are so small, the nanoparticles, that they weren't even able to count them. They said, quote, due to the limit of detection associated with counting and identifying suspected microplastic particles under a microscope, our results pertain to only microplastics 45 microns and larger. This means that nanoplastics and mini microplastics that are less than 45 microns are not included in our results. All right, so if it's smaller than 45 microns, they weren't even able to cut it or to count it. And this is a lot of the particulate that's accumulating. All right, there's nano particulate. Oh, there's nano titanium that's added to our food just for coloring, to color things certain whites. And I believe there's a whole lawsuit on it for things like Skittles, okay, because they're adding nano titanium to the food, nano metals, nano magnetic metal particles. They're adding those to the food as well. And these can potentially be accumulating inside of your body. And they also could potentially be reacting to certain EMF frequencies, right? So outside of your body. So this stuff's very serious. This is civilizational threat. And this is part of it all. This is part of the collapse. So let me know what you guys think down below. All right. This is in everything. This is why it's going to be critical to just grow your own food. That's going to be the only way you can know that it's not filled with all these microplastics. But even then, the water is contaminated. The water that you feed your animals and give to your animals to drink is contaminated with these microplastics. All right. The feed bag that the food comes in for your animals made of microplastics, made of these plastics, right? It's everywhere. It's very hard to escape, and it's going to become critical to get these things out of your system, all right? One of the best ways to do it, cut water bottles out of your diet. No water bottles. That'll be a huge cutout of microplastics out of your body. And if you have a well, or if you have good tap water, you can check to see what's in your tap water. You should be able to check to see if your county puts fluoride in their tap water and see if it's safe, right? Because a lot of these water bottles and things, they're just filling it up at the tap anyways, and then you just get the microplastics from the water bottle as well, right? All of our food is wrapped in it. If you can go to farmers markets and things like that and get fresh raw foods that aren't wrapped in plastics, then that's a way that you can mitigate it as well, right? These things are just, you need to be detoxing. You need to be sweating it out. You need to be drinking a lot of water that doesn't touch any plastic, right? And even a lot of the piping, it's plastic. But especially food-wise, things like packaged products, things that come in boxes, cereals, processed foods, those are going to have very high levels of these microplastics as well, because they're just sitting in this packaging for a long time, and there's a lot of temperature changes. It's getting hot, getting cold, it's absorbing this stuff, right? Don't heat up anything in plastic in the stove and the microwave. There's this new wave of using silicone products for cooking. I highly advise not to do that, right? I advise for stainless steel or cast iron. All right, those are the only two that I would cook with. Stainless steel, cast iron. And I wouldn't use silicone. It's this new trend. Everything's made of silicone, all the spatulas, people cooking in it, baking in it. I really do not approve. Yeah, it's not melting, but it's leaching. It's leaching. It's just like how there's certain things you can put in the microwave and nuke them, and it's not going to melt it. It's not going to melt the plastic, but it's leaching into the food, right? It's leaching in just like the water bottles are leaching. And the temperature changes really activates the leaching effect, and specifically heat, because it excites the molecules and they leach over a lot more easily, right? So just something to think about to get this out of your system. You need to detox this crap out of your system. And I'm talking to myself too. This is something that we've actively been working on for years, is to just have less plastic, no plastic bottles for the kids or anything. Try to have all stainless steel stuff, because at least we know what that does. At least we know. And even that, there's been lead contamination in some of these stainless steel products, and there's been recalls. All right, so you have to even be careful of that, where you are getting your products from, like your tumblers, your drink, whatever, these mugs. All right, I'm not too hip on all that, but all these things, you need to be careful where they're coming from as well, right? Because I've seen recalls on children's ones that have lead all in them, right? Thankfully it wasn't ours, but we could have bought those. So please hit it up for me down there, all right, to help get this video out. People need to know 88% of the proteins tested are showing up with excessive levels of these microplastics. And that's just at detectable levels that they're able to filter out and count. All right, so thank you guys so much. I hope you guys are getting prepared, getting ready for spring, for summer. It'll be here before we know it. All right, it's coming, and this needs to be a good season. We're working on meat chickens. We're getting more egg layers. All right, we only had a few because we were in our RV. traveling for a few years. All right, we just had a few that we would just let out wherever we were staying in our RV, or just whatever. Right, but we're getting more egg layers. We're getting more meat birds. Right, all these are on order. They're coming soon, and it's time to go. It's go time. The garden's getting dug out. All right, got seedlings in trays. This is go time, and the spring and the summer will be here before we know it, and these seasons come quick. Season comes and goes before you know it, and then you just have to wait till next year to get growing again, to grow the crops you want to grow. So now's the time to do it, and it's critical for your health. It's becoming more critical every single day. Our food supply is being infected with more and more crap, right? And even the milk and the meat has this new chemical added to it as well from the animal feed supply. All right, go check out that video down below if you haven't seen that before. I'll link that down below. Our food supply is getting hit, our water supply is getting hit, and the skies, the air, everything is getting hit right now. So it's becoming more critical every day to be growing your own food and to be detoxing this junk out of our bodies. All right, so thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.